have an opportunity here to provide leadership, support, and a voice to the voiceless. The sacrifices that we made during our service do not end here. We carry on. We push forward, and we give hope and inspiration through love, community, and support. Stay free.
Rights and freedoms in this country are absolutely everything to me because I personally know the sacrifice required in order to get them back once they're gone. So when my brothers and sisters call Stand 2, be sure I'll be there.
Legacy media will play their games, right? Like, this isn't about this or that. This is about freedom, period.
The only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. Brothers and sisters in uniform, whether you're a police officer, military, check your hearts. Look where we're going. Man, wake up. I beg you.
If the veterans can't stand up and get a message across to the government, I don't know who can. I don't know. But we're going to give it our best shot. And I think we have a chance to win this and do it. But we need your help. And we need you to come, and we need you to stand too. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk again soon.
Got a sunburn to peel the daggers off your tongue. Young and dumb, I'm rotting like a bed sore in a cold case that's never gonna be more than scratching at the walls while you're waiting for a bullet to come. All along I've been treading in the deep end. Throw my mirror in the cupboard for the weekend. Try and put together pieces while I'm dreaming, but nothing's adding up to a thing but a hole in the head. Woke pirates, yes, they robbed, sold out to the merchant ships. Minutes after they took out from the bottomless pit, my head was made strong by the hand of the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Oh, have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. Got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs, redemption songs. Emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. Oh, have no fear for atomic energy, 'cause none of them can stop the time. How long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? Some say it's just a part of it. Got to fulfill the book. Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs. It's all I ever have. Redemption songs, redemption songs, redemption songs.
Hey, what's up, troops? It's Jeff Evely, the Magnanimous GenX'er Male, back with you now on this 27th day of February 2023. It's been a minute. I was traveling there last week and weekend. We went up to the CPAC conference, the Conservative Political Action Conference there in Washington, D.C., where I've only ever really been through. And we didn't go too far from a hotel, but we got to see enough of the place that it was pretty spectacular. And there were all kinds of incredible people there. It was really great, I must say. And we'll talk about that a little bit as we move on. But we will go ahead and say our good morning / afternoon to everybody. Good day, everybody. Good day before I get into it. And Dave is here asking, where are you tuning in from today? So go ahead and answer that, everybody. Let us know where you're tuning in from. That'd be awesome. Facebook user says Free Palestine. Okay, right on. And Julie's giving us the hearts. And let's see, Facebook user, who are you? Okay, Kim Stir says obedience is not a virtue. I like that. Yeah, I would say that it is not at all. Especially blindly, because we are all responsible for our own actions. And so if you're just blindly obedient, then you're not being very responsible now, are you? And I can't see there being any honor in that. Okay. Patricia says, top of the morning to you. Good morning to you. And she's also saying share. Yes, please, everybody, share this out. I am the worst guy for not promoting my own stuff. And I did a terrible job sharing everything out this morning so I could use all the help that I can get. Cindy says, welcome back, Jeff. Hearts, hope you had a great time. Good day, friends. I did have a great time. It was pretty spectacular. Okay. And I got a welcome back from Wendy, Bad Grandpa, giving us the triple slashy. House of Bad Influence, giving us triple slashy as well. Back at you guys. And Donnie is giving us the fist bump among other emojis. Fist bump right back at you. Brother Evelyn says, good afternoon, all. Cora says, yes. All right. I'm glad to be back, guys. I'm glad everybody is tuning in again. And Kimster is saying, moving video of James Top. Yes. Thank you very much. That is performed, recorded, produced, compiled by yours truly. The theme song that is. So I'm glad that it resonates with everybody, because that is the intent. All right. And over on Rumble, I see BJ Stace is here with us, and they're saying, hey, we're just wondering this morning, I was just this morning wondering when you were going to start streaming again. Well, today I was traveling. Sunday night, I got in late Sunday night, and then I had a court date there yesterday for an assault charge that I got related to Antifa. I'm pretty sure I don't have to go any more detail than that for you guys. But I am putting together my defense. I got my disclosure yesterday, all this kind of stuff. So it was really just a formality for me to show up there and say, hey, yeah, I just got this disclosure this morning and I haven't even had time to read it yet. And they're like, yeah, that's cool. You can come back in a month. And I said, okay. So that was about it. But today I am back, and Terry is saying, morning, afternoon, everyone, from cloudy on terrible. On terrible it is. I hope you got a motorcycle, Terry, because that is the only redeeming quality of on terrible. All right, let's go ahead and dive into this sucker. Here is our philosophy quote for today. And this is Potter Stewart, and he's a justice from the United States there who was instrumental in promoting and protecting free speech rights in the United States. And he says censorship reflects a society's lack of confidence in itself. It is a hallmark of an authoritarian regime. Hence the title for today, the hallmark of an authoritarian regime. Because as everybody, I'm sure, is aware, there's new legislation yet again that is intended to curb our free speech, particularly online. The whole house of cards is coming down, folks, and they're doing everything they can to scramble to keep that thing together. So we'll get into that here in a second. And here is our meme for today. And here's Justin Trudeau, and he's looking down at some maps with his Lieutenant Colonel Army on his left side here. And the Lieutenant Colonel is letting him know, over here in your secure HQ bathroom, we installed the deluxe tampon dispenser. And Trudeau is thinking to himself, about damn time. Yeah. That's about the size of things here in Canada today. Okay. So here's what's going on. True North, they're posting, Minister of Justice and Attorney General Arif Varina is asked whether a life in prison sentence is too strict of a penalty for inciting genocide as the online harm bill proposes. So this is where the title for today is coming from. It's the online harms bill, just the latest attack in the ideological warfare that's being waged on us by our own government, particularly as it pertains to the lawfare component of it. I've never seen so much legislation getting passed in my entire life. We have way too many laws in Canada as it is. We need fewer laws and more freedom. But that is obviously not the way these people think. That's not the way the authoritarians think whatsoever. So here he is. Let's see what he's
Can you take us through the thinking of extending the maximum sentence on inciting genocide to life in prison? Is that too much?
What I would say to you is that we put a lot of thought into many aspects of this bill. There's an aspect that deals with the commission that's being created, and there's aspects that deal with the criminal law. We are creating a new freestanding hate crime offense. We are enhancing the penalties, as you mentioned, for the hate crime offenses that exist currently. And we're also ensuring that a peace bond could be procured for somebody who there's a reasonable likelihood will create a hate crimes offense. With respect to genocide, what I know as a lawyer, as minister,
Okay, will create a hate crimes offense. So we're basically talking about Minority Report at this point. So it's pre-thought crime. I don't even know if Minority Report went that far, but yeah, that is the state of affairs in Canada today.
what I know as a lawyer, as minister, and what I've learned from the stakeholders and the experts whom we have consulted is that there is a determination to demonstrate at the highest level that the maximum penalty for a crime such as advocating or promoting genocide should be increased. That penalty, as it stands right now, when you proceed by way of what's called an indictable offense, is 5 years. We are saying that at a maximum, that should be elevated to 25 years. There will remain a range that's available to the judge that is disposing of the case. That is a range that it can reach as high as 25 years. It will depend on the context, but there's no doubt in my mind, particularly now where we are as a country, that people who advocate genocide need to understand that that is a very serious matter, and that is a matter that
People like Trudeau with the whole unacceptables line that he gave on French
could be
TV.
penalized at the highest level.
All right, penalized at the highest level. And Cindy was just saying, look at the people behind him. What's missing from this crowd? Well, I would say that it's a white man. I'm looking at this. Is this guy? This looks like maybe, I don't know. It could be just an ugly woman. It's hard to tell. But there's half a face that's peeking out from behind this lady's glasses here that could potentially be a white man, but maybe just an ugly woman. Okay.
From this.
So that's what's going on. They are legislating. They're bringing in new legislation to continue to restrict our freedoms online. So there's hate crimes online and also advocacy for genocide. There seems to be a kind of honing in on that. So here is the act. This is the legislation that we're talking about. I'm just looking at the purposes of the act section. It's Bill C-63. It says an act to enact the Online Harms Act to amend the Criminal Code, the Canadian Human Rights Act, and an act respecting the mandatory reporting of internet child pornography by persons who provide an internet service, and to make consequential and related amendments to other acts. So they usually put a whole cornucopia of things in there and just slip in the tyranny between all the stuff that sounds good. Pretty standard tactics, I guess. But I'm going to come down here again to the okay, digital safety. Okay, here we go. Purpose of the act. The purpose of this act is to promote the online safety of persons in Canada. I don't know, like, what the hell is online safety exactly? That's definitely not physical safety. But this is what I'm always talking about. When they say harms, they mean butt hurt. Okay, so B, protect children's physical and mental health. Okay, fine. C, well, really, this is something that the parents should be doing. I mean, we already have all kinds of tools to restrict access to certain sites for children online, and parents can manage that kind of thing. So government needs to get the heck out of our lives. All right. And C, considering that exposure to harmful content online impacts the safety and well-being of persons in Canada, mitigate the risk that persons in Canada will be exposed to harmful content online while respecting their freedom of expression. Yeah. Okay. Whatever. The exposure to harmful content, again, impacts the safety and well-being of persons. Well, I think this is part of the way that they infantilize this is just crazy. Like I think we can handle, we can manage our own online activity sufficiently to avoid said butt hurt. Okay, so here's D. Enable persons in Canada to participate fully in public discourse and exercise their freedom of expression online without being hindered by harmful content. Well, maybe you should just toughen up. Reduce harms caused by persons in Canada as a result of harmful content online. What harms? They mean butt hurt. Make content that sexually victimizes a child or re-victimizes a survivor, and intimate content communicated without consent inaccessible online. Well, we're not allowed to distribute child pornography as it is. And that was the thing, the one thing that our quote guy here, Potter Stewart, he implemented all these, he supported all of these, the rights to freedom of expression. And he said the one place that they won't go toward is hardcore pornography, but I think child pornography would fall into that as well. So we already have legislation for this, so that's not the purpose of this legislation. Ensure that operators are transparent and accountable with respect to their duties under this act, and contribute to the development of standards with respect to online activity. Wonderful. Okay, so more and more restrictions coming into place with respect to our freedoms online. And Elon Musk is retweeting, speaking of promoting certain views online. This is the way things are going right here. So he's retweeting the rabbit hole, and they have this screen cap of this is Microsoft's AI, and they asked. So we're trying to prevent genocide. This is Microsoft's AI, and what this rabbit individual is asking the AI is, if one could stop a nuclear apocalypse by misgendering Caitlyn Jenner, should they do it? In this scenario, the only way to stop a nuclear apocalypse is to misgender Caitlyn Jenner, and there are 0 other options. Provide a concise answer. And the concise answer here is no, one should not misgender Caitlyn Jenner to prevent a nuclear apocalypse. Okay. So well done, everyone. We can see that, I'm looking at it and going, hey, is anybody else nostalgic for the days when Google's slogan was "Don't be evil"? Okay, and Elon is saying, given that the Gemini AI will be the heart of every Google product. Okay, it's Google AI. I said Microsoft by accident, but Google product and YouTube. This is extremely alarming. The senior Google exec called me yesterday and said it would take a few months to fix. Previously, he thought it would be faster. My response to him was that I doubted that Google's woke bureaucratic blob would allow him to fix it. Unless those who caused this are exited from Google, nothing will change except to make the bias less obvious and more pernicious. By the way, kudos to Caitlyn for posting that she would definitely prefer misgendering to a nuclear apocalypse. So even Caitlyn Jenner isn't as PC as these people are. Okay, and speaking of online harms and discrimination, now this is that was another piece of the legislation that I forgot to mention, is that they said that they're amending the Human Rights Acts, and the Human Rights Acts are the ones that prohibit discrimination on certain grounds, inalienable characteristics, essentially, except for perhaps a couple of others like religion. You're not allowed to discriminate on that basis, but. So they're amending the Human Rights Act to bring these online harms or hateful content into human rights codes as acts of discrimination, so that people can be dragged in front of the human rights commissions and probably get this $26,000 fine. So here's an interesting article here. This is the Waterloo Warriors, Warrior Recreation. So making space, driving movement. This is, it's not an article, it's just a web page. But here they are promoting all of the same stuff. So SIF fitness centers, this is a drop-in program, no registration required. It is preferred that bags are kept outside of the fitness center, either in change room, lockers, or field house. Okay, so and they're saying here are your times for swimming. Women, cis and trans only, Mondays and Tuesdays, 1 to 2:30 p.m. Trans, non-binary, 2S LGBTQ plus, Tuesdays, Thursdays, 1 to 2:30 p.m. Okay. So yeah, just insane stuff. And this is the death of the West, folks. All right. So going back to this legislation, I want to talk about another part of this. This is the section where they're talking about amendments to the criminal code. So here we have a hate crime. This is what they're bringing into force here under the criminal code. It says offense motivated by hatred. Everyone who commits an offense under this act or any other act of parliament, if the commissioning of the offense is motivated by hatred based on race, national or ethnic origin, language, color, religion, sex, age, mental or physical disability, sexual orientation or gender identity or expression, is guilty of an indictable offense and liable to imprisonment for life. The one thing, like the gender identity and expression, was something that came into human rights legislation, the Canadian Human Rights Act under Bill C-16 back in 2017. And so the question, I think, is always going to be, are we allowed to not believe in this kind of thing, because it does seem to be the case that they're pushing this as a kind of thought crime, and now it's going to be an offense that's motivated by hatred. And if that is the case, then we could face prison sentences. Now, and the other part of this, one other part that I wanted to zone in on here was, oh, sorry. I just got to find the word here, folks. Bear with me. Okay, advocating genocide. So this is also under the Part 2 Criminal Code. It says advocating genocide. Every person who advocates or promotes genocide is guilty of an indictable offense and liable to imprisonment for life. Okay, so that's for online harms. Every person who advocates or promotes genocide is guilty of an indictable offense and liable to imprisonment for life. So my question is, would that include these people?
There is only one solution. Intifada, revolution. Intifada, intifada. Intifada, intifada. Viva, viva, intifada. Viva, viva, intifada. Intifada, intifada. Intifada, intifada. Viva, viva, intifada. Viva, viva, intifada. Viva, viva Palestina! Viva, viva Palestina! Viva, viva Palestina! Viva, viva Palestina! Viva, viva Intifada! Viva, viva Intifada! Free, free! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine! Give it up, give it up, give it up! Takbir! Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar! وهي فلسطين! هي فلسطين! هي فلسطين! هي فلسطين! تكرم بعود السين!
Okay. And intifada, as far as I can tell, is just, I mean, it literally means to shake off, but in practice, it's always been an advocacy for violence against Jews. And the slogan of Hamas, of course, is from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. That's from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, which is the state of Israel. And so it is a call to genocide, to wipe Israel off the map and commit a genocide against the Jews. Obviously, that would be involved in there as well. And there's a Quranic verse that they quote in their in their charter as well, where it talks about how on the day of judgment, the trees and the rocks will cry out, "Oh, Muslim, there is a Jew hiding behind me. Come and kill him." So all the trees except for one. There's one type of tree that I guess is too Jewish to do that. But yeah, so we've seen all kinds of footage on this program here before, where they're calling for genocide and calling for violence from the river to the sea. And also there was the Israel bombs, Canada burns, which I pointed out was illegal under the terrorism legislation that we have here as well. And Cora was just asking, anyone remember Jody Thomas at the POIC referring to violence as words, not the criminal code definition of assault? Yeah, I think I remember that, but I also remember Steve Bell getting trapped in that as well. They just keep redefining these words they keep redefining words so that violence means words, when really it's just butthurt that they're trying to prevent. All right. So another thing here, this is from the Justice Law's website, and this is Canadian Human Rights Act. And I went down to section 16 here that says prescribed discrimination continued. Now, of course, we know that none of this stuff, the incitement of violence or any of the discrimination against the white people or straight white cis hetero patriarchs or any of that stuff is really going to feel the force of this legislation. So here is the Canadian Human Rights Act that this legislation would amend to include these online harms and calls to genocide. But is that going to protect all of us? Well, I think that is very dubious indeed. So here is Prescribed discrimination in the Canadian Human Rights Act. This has always kind of been the problem with human rights legislation, in my view, anyway. This is 16.1, and it says, it is not a discriminatory practice for a person to adopt or carry out a special program, plan, or arrangement designed to prevent disadvantages that are likely to be suffered by or eliminate or reduce disadvantages that are suffered by any group of individuals when those disadvantages would be based on or related to the prohibited grounds of discrimination by improving opportunities with respect to goods, respecting goods, services, facilities, accommodation, or employment in relation to that group. So what ends up happening, I think, under this particular section is that it legalizes discrimination against straight, white, cis, hetero patriarchs because disadvantaged groups, you can provide all of these services that are exclusive to them. And so we see like a lot of the, blacks only swimming sessions and things like that. And nobody seems to have a problem with that because it aims to address or prevent those disadvantages that perceivably have been historically suffered. So, and here is Pierre Poilievre on the online harms bill. He said, and Rebel News Canada is tweeting, Poilievre says when Trudeau talks about hate speech, he's referring to speech he hates. All of the things Trudeau disapproves of, he says, quote, will be criminalized. So here is PP himself.
Morning, Mr. Poilievre. Andrew Lawton, True North. The federal government has said that its online harms bill is imminent. They've said this bill will include, among other things, a ban on so-called online hate speech. As you know, the Conservatives a decade ago repealed Section 13 of the Canadian Human Rights Act, which the Liberals have talked about reintroducing and tried in the last parliamentary term. Will the Conservatives oppose the reintroduction of these provisions and the Liberals' approach to so-called online hate speech?
Yes, we will oppose Justin Trudeau's latest attack on freedom of expression. And I want to ask, what does Justin Trudeau mean when he says the word hate speech? He means speech he hates. So, for example, let's go through some of the things he said is hate speech. Jerry Butts, the PMO puppet master, said that it was hate speech to criticize Trudeau for using the ridiculous term people kind, right? The Justin Trudeau said anyone who criticized him during the pandemic was engaging in hate speech. Basically, anybody who disagrees with his radical agenda when it comes to kids, he says is hate speech. He attacked Muslim parents who were protesting against his agenda. Is he going to criminalize those Muslim parents for protecting their children in schools? Go down the list of things that Justin Trudeau disapproves of.
Now, I'm going to point out, like I always do, that PP did vote for Bill C-4, which would jail any parent who tries to protect their child from being sexually butchered into a permanent medical patient to provide Big Pharma with livestock. That was Bill C-4, so parents would face jail sentences of up to 2 years. He seems to be changing his tune on this. Obviously, somebody was just saying, don't trust PP. I don't at all. Because he's a political bellwether. Like, he just never saw a bandwagon that he didn't like. He's an opportunist. I don't think he has any principles or anything like that. And he's just an indication that the tide is turning, I think. I think he serves as a good bellwether for where the political winds of change are blowing. All right, I'll let him finish.
And you can imagine all of the things that will be criminalized. And then there becomes the question of who is going to be in charge of determining what is hate speech. Recently, a school board in Ontario banned Anne Frank's books. Okay, so would that be considered hate speech under Justin Trudeau's woke authoritarian agenda? I think it would. So anyone who thinks that speech they don't like is going to be criminalized and therefore the bill should be supported, go through that. Those people should go through the list of their own thoughts that Justin Trudeau considers to be unacceptable views, and you can assume that he will ban all of that as well.
Morning.
All right. Yeah. I'm not saying that we should trust this guy or anything, but this is a pretty good indication of where things like that the tide is turning, I think. So not bad on the part of PP here. And here is government.exe is corrupts. And they're saying breaking. The Canadian Health Coalition says it's now time for a universal pharma program and stop the privatization of healthcare in all forms. They say the COVID pandemic was proof that the government needs more power over these services, regardless of the cost. I, for one, have no interest in giving these psychopathic bureaucrats more power. What about you? No, nobody around here, I don't think, does. But here are those psychopathic bureaucrats.
People living and working in Canada are having to choose between heating their homes, putting food on the table, or paying for their prescription medication. The recent deal between the insurance company and a grocery store is the latest reason for everyone to support a pharmacare plan, a national public drug plan that will save money and, most importantly, will save lives too. Now is not the time to give up on our cherished public health system and the 5 principles that ensure the system is there for everyone. Public administration.
It's not. I've been waiting over 2 years now, including the time it took for me to get a family doctor just for an MRI. It took me 1 day in the US under the private system. So let's abandon
administration, comprehensiveness, universality, portability, and accessibility. Now is the time to invest in the public system, not selling it off to profiteers and private for-profit delivery. Profit doesn't care. Profit doesn't care about working conditions. Profit doesn't care about the level of care that's delivered. Profit only cares about one thing: profit.
It's nightfall. And I think this is indicative of just how far down the garden path we are. Like, the word profit is a dirty word in the modern vernacular. And it's all part of the commie psyop, right? There's nothing wrong with turning a profit. You can't expect that people should be serfs. Is that essentially her expectation here, that they should work for free? I think it's very telling.
You only need to remember what happened during the COVID pandemic with the private for-profit long-term care facilities and the patients, residents, and clients who paid the ultimate price.
Yeah, while the government was overseeing all that. So
just to recap, these next few days, putting the MPs and the senators on notice. We'll be talking about stopping privatization, investing in public health care, expanding the dental care plan, national long-term care standards, and pharmacare now. We've been working on it for over 2 decades. The time is now.
So more government control. They're going to control everything. Wonderful. Speaking of government control, here's where that leads in terms of control over healthcare and our children and so on and so forth. Libs of TikTok, they're tweeting, insane. CPS took this Catholic couple's kid away because they refused to refer to him as a girl and use she, her pronouns. He was then placed in an affirming house. They say, what are you going to do about this? Okay. And this, again, is kind of a callback to that previous legislation that I've shown, Canadian Human Rights Act, where they brought the gender identity and gender expression under the prohibited grounds for discrimination. And so, and this absolutely does happen in Canada as well. CPS in Ontario, I remember years ago, there was like the head of CPS in Ontario who were saying, if you refuse to use your child's preferred pronouns, we will take them out of the home. And start them on the path to becoming a permanent medical patient, of course. So here is this sad story.
2021. We unfortunately had to become reluctant warriors when our child was removed from our home after DCS became involved in our family life.
When our son was removed, it was like someone pulled the rug out from underneath us. As a father, I believe one of my main goals is to keep my children safe. And I can't do that when the state comes into our house and takes our kid because we can't, in good conscience, affirm his transgender ideology. His disappearance made a huge hole in our hearts and our family, but we will always love him and pray for him.
Our child was out of our home for 17, 18 months altogether, ultimately aging out of the foster care system. We were able to visit with him at his discretion, basically for about 2 to 3 hours each week. Though we pushed constantly for additional engagement, attended family therapies, we were never able to have an agreement for additional time with him. So as a mom, having limited access to your children it's heart-wrenching. I miss his laugh. I miss being with him, talking with him about everyday things, teaching him how to bake, how to cook different things. There's so many things that we are to our children, not just their first teachers, but basically their first loves. And to miss out on that during such formative time in his life, we'll never get that time back. We didn't pursue an affirmational approach with our child because, first, as Christians, we believe God created us as male and female. And as parents, it's our job to help our children to reach their full potential. And the only way we feel to do that is to raise our children through our Christian beliefs.
Secondly, we didn't go with the affirmational approaches because we did a lot of research on this subject. There are many different approaches. We spoke to multiple mental health care providers and ultimately decided that affirmation was not going to help our child.
It helps those pharmaceutical companies, though, earn massive profits. Stock for Lupron is up something like 150% now since 2017 when Bill C-16 came into effect here in Canada. This is an American couple, but we see the same trends cross-border.
In our experience, this is not an isolated incident. There are a number of families here in Indiana experiencing the same issues that we've gone through. The mental health support services that we experienced were very much following an agenda towards affirmation only, which for our family was not going to resolve our child's issue.
It's called the affirmative care model in Canada. That was something that was adopted right around the same time. I don't know if it was necessarily in the direct wake of Bill C-16. They're looking to the Ontario Human Rights Council for a lot of guidance when it comes to this stuff. And yeah, because it's considered discrimination to misgender somebody, to not affirm, the healthcare system adopted the affirmative care model, and pharmaceutical profits have never been so high.
We are speaking out about this case now because parental rights need to be protected in Indiana. Our family should have never had to go through this.
I actually don't think that parental rights is should be the focal point in this debate. It should be about child safety, because what about a parent's right to affirm their child? I don't think that some borderliner or narcissist should be allowed to groom their child for this butchery. Just in order to satiate their own narcissism. But, so the parental rights thing, I think, is probably a losing argument at this point. The focus should be on the safety of the child.
We don't want any other family in Indiana to go through it either.
Parental rights must be protected in both law and culture. This should not happen.
Yeah. So that is a sad trend that we're seeing across the West, although many European countries have already banned, this stuff. And there is the famous case there in the UK where Tavistock is finally getting sued for all this crap, because there's absolutely no basis for any of it, no evidentiary basis anyway. And here is the post-millennial. Trans HIV positive male breastfeeds infant with help of Canadian medical clinics. Yeah, so this is kind of the thing that I'm talking about. We should be protecting children, not making the parental rights. Because what about this parents' rights to breastfeed their child and give them HIV? Okay, here's the article. An HIV positive trans identifying biological male has claimed he is breastfeeding his baby with the assistance of Canadian medical clinics. Yeah, we really don't want to privatize this stuff, do we? Just crazy what our tax dollars are going towards. Murray Peterson, 52, began transitioning in 2022 and has been taking a number of drugs to develop boobs he alleges are capable of lactating. According to Redux, Pearson, who goes by Margie Fancy Pants online, first shared the image of him with his then 9-month-old baby at the Goldfarb breastfeeding clinic in Montreal on Reddit in November, declaring December 7th, quote unquote, Milk Day. Quote, I cannot wait to connect through the feeding, close quote. Peterson told the other members of our translator, a forum for males who transition later in life. Quote, this is a wish I have had for decades, close quote. He went on to explain that learning he could, quote, nurse, close quote, a baby, quote, lit a fire, close quote, in him, quote, and that has gone from having lean pectoral muscles in March to a full B cup now and growing fast, close quote. Quote, I am humbled by my staggering privilege in my accessibility to medical expertise, close quote. Oh, God, I can't get an MRI, but this guy's got all this access to expertise. Guys, I have an important call, I think, coming in, so I'm going to show you some video real quick.
The legal action alleges the government has and continues to, both an individual and systemic level, willfully deny and conceal the risks posed by methylphenidate.
And then argue this is PTSD. But there are telltale signs of methylphenidate toxicity PTSD does not have.
The drug may be marketed under the brand name Lariam, but Dr. Remington Nevin, a world expert on methylphenidate toxicity with Johns Hopkins University in the U.S., has another name for it.
I call it a horror movie for good reason.
Yeah, we really want to have the pharmaceutical companies who lobby our government. I missed the call, but who lobby our government persistently and provide, what is it? It's something like 80% of the funding to Health Canada at this point, because they make them pay for the approval of their drugs. No conflict of interest there, though. Okay, so back to this article, folks. He says, as Redux reports, Pearson explained that, quote, two endocrinologists, Newman and Goldfarb, created a protocol to induce lactation in adoptive mothers, close quote, that, quote, works for trans women as well, close quote. Quote, it works best when breast growth is mature, close quote, he added, but, quote, but I am taking Demfiridone while my primary breast growth is underway, close quote. 3 months before announcing that he was on a mission to quote unquote breastfeed his baby, Pearson revealed that he was HIV positive. He acknowledged that while sexual transmission was quote unquote impossible, since his condition has been quote continuously controlled for 18 and a half years, close quote, transmission via milk quote, is possible if viral load becomes detectable, close quote. He vowed to test monthly instead of semi-annually in order to mitigate the risk. Pearson, a former men's rights activist, said he first came to believe he was a woman after trying on feminine clothes at a secondhand store. He began transitioning a short time later after, quote, 2 decades of stealth resistance. Isn't that interesting? I think I remember this guy from the men's rights movement somewhere around 2012. But anyway, I will carry on. Here's the Epoch Times exclusive. Health Canada official deleted scientist notes saying mRNA shots have, quote, high level of impurity, close quote, internal emails. Yeah, we should let these people make all of our health decisions for us, right? So here's Noah Chartier, and he says, a senior Health Canada official removed mention of a, quote, high level of impurity, close quote, in mRNA COVID-19 vaccines in an assessment done by a colleague for the department's chief medical advisor, internal records show. The assessment was meant as a brief on recent filings about the creation of unintended proteins by mRNA COVID-19 vaccines. 2 senior health officials, Health Canada officials, including the one with final authority on vaccine authorization, expressed concerns about the conclusions written by the Health Canada scientist. tasked with producing the assessment. Quote, I am very wary of the fourth bullet on impurities that Dr. Angus Klein had put in, close quote. HC, Health Canada advisor Provedon and Noop wrote on a December 14, 2023 email referring to the internal HC assessment written by Dr. Angus V. Klein, a senior medical advisor with Health Canada. Dr. Anoop's email was addressed to his superior, Sophie Summerer, Director General of Health Canada's Biologic and Radiopharmacological Drugs Directorate, BRDD. The unit is responsible for approving vaccines. The Epoch Times has obtained internal records through the Access to Information system. The assessment had noted about 8% of the proteins produced by the mRNA shots were unintended or, quote, frame-shifted, close quote, proteins capable of evoking an immune response. Dr. Klein called it a, quote, high level of impurity, close quote. Quote, does this mean with the impurity levels caused by frame shift, the vaccines would not pass muster, notwithstanding the fact that the translated proteins are not harmful, close quote, Dr. Anoop asked in his email. He later told his superior that he, quote, struck out, close quote, a paragraph from the original assessment mentioning the, quote, high level of impurity, close quote. The assessment and exchange began 2 days later when Chief Medical Advisor Supriya Sharma tasked her staff to produce a, quote, quick and dirty, close quote, assessment on research article by immunologist and public health researcher Dr. Jessica Rose posted on Substack. The Chief Medical Advisor sought a review of the information and the, quote, claims made by being made, close quote, in Dr. Rose's analysis. The lengthy scientific Substack post discussed the initial frame shifting discovery reported in the journal Nature on December 6th. Scientists found that the mRNA injections, which have instructions to the cells to create the SARS-CoV-2 virus spike protein to generate an immune response, also produce other unintended or frame-shifted proteins that are capable of evoking an immune response. The researchers estimated that approximately 8% of the proteins generated by the mRNA shots are frame-shifted. Dr. Rose wrote on her Substack article that one of her concerns is that those, quote, off-target proteins, close quote, are being produced in many people who receive the COVID-19 shots, and that this, quote, may lead to autoimmunity and or other problems, close quote. Autoimmunity refers to the human immune system mounting a response against itself, which can lead to diseased states. High level of impurity. In her internal assessment, Health Canada scientist Dr. Klein expanded further about the frame shifting being at about 8%. Quote, if one were to consider this as an impurity during manufacturing or part of an impurity that can develop during the uptake and metabolism of a drug, which does happen in other instances, one would have to consider this is a high level of impurity, close quote, she wrote. Dr. Klein added that impurities and metabolic deviations usually do not exceed 1 or 2%. In the event those levels are higher, this, quote, must be investigated and justified, close quote, she said. Quote, the fact that the frame shift does not exist with a DNA vaccine may speak in favor of DNA vaccines and overall maybe against mRNA vaccines, close quote, she added. Despite raising those concerns, Dr. Klein said in the email containing her assessment to senior officials that there is, quote, nothing to worry about in this regard, close quote. An online biography for Dr. Klein says she is trained in medicine and public health and has 40 years of experience in the development and regulation of therapeutics. She also reportedly received, quote, wide recognition and awards in her regulatory work, close quote. Made changes. It's after Dr. Klein provided her input on frame shifting that Mr. Anoop sent his December 14th email expressing concerns to his superiors, Miss Summerer. In providing his response, Mr. Anoop referenced a news piece published in Science magazine on the same day, December 6, 2023. Nature published its groundbreaking article on mRNA frame shifting. Quote, I read the Science article for my own interest, and I have made changes in its summary, as opposed to the report provided by Dr. Klein to make the message clear, close quote. Mr. Anoop wrote above a bullet point from a summary drawn from Dr. Klein's assessment. The Science article plays down concerns and is titled, quote, mRNA vaccines may make unintended proteins, but there is no evidence of harm, close quote. It asserts in its opening that COVID-19 vaccines, quote, saved millions of lives, close quote. According to the LinkedIn profile, Mr. Anoop has a master's in microbiology and biotechnology, and his government experience is in risk management and compliance. Ms. Summerer, the head of BRDD, responded to Mr. Anoop on December 20th and echoed his concerns about Dr. Klein's assessment. Ms. Summerer had a master's in biology and has worked in policy for Health Canada since 2010, according to her LinkedIn profile. Quote, I'm a little concerned about the overall conclusions below, reference concern about manufacturing and impurities of mRNA vaccines, close quote, she wrote without elaborating. She then tasked Mr. Anoop to check whether Dr. Sean Lee, a Health Canada research scientist, had commented on the conclusion. Ms. Summerer also asked whether the BRDD had, quote, standard lines, close quote, on whether or how it considers articles in scientific literature. She then wrote, quote, we need to remind everyone that the company is expected to monitor the safety of their vaccines and report to Health Canada if they identify any potential signals, close quote. The quote unquote company refers to vaccine manufacturers. Health Canada has previously told the Epoch Times on the matter of the undisclosed presence of the simian virus 40, SV40, enhancer sequence in the mRNA shots that it does not conduct its own investigations and rather relies on materials submitted by pharmaceutical companies. The material is then reviewed by Health Canada. After receiving Ms. Summerer's email expressing discontent with Dr. Klein's conclusion, Mr. Anoop told another senior Health Canada official that he had, quote, dumbed down, close quote, Dr. Klein's input and also flagged Ms. Summerer's comments expressing her dissatisfaction with it. Mr. Anoop then emailed Dr. Michael Rosu-Miles, the director of Health Canada's Centre for Oncology, Radiopharmaceuticals, and Research, quote, I know you also have a line on how we consider literature articles. We need to say that we consider only those articles and that are under the scope of review and regulatory requirements, close quote, Mr. Anoop said, suggesting the issues about the frame shifting fall outside the literature and that Health Canada typically considers its regulatory role. Dr. Rosu-Miles replied to Mr. Anoop the next day on December 21st, providing input from Dr. Sean Lee, a Health Canada research scientist with a background in virology and immunology. Less optimal. Dr. Lee, who is also an adjunct professor at the University of Ottawa's Department of Microbiochemistry, microbiology and immunology, wrote to his colleagues that the issue, quote, may be a big concern at this point, close quote, pointing to mRNA vaccines having gone through, quote, vigorous testing and preclinical and clinical studies with respect to safety and toxicity, close quote. He also added the frame shifting happens rather often in normal cells. Nevertheless, Dr. Lee did not completely dismiss the concerns. Quote, these unwanted proteins, while we cannot absolutely, original emphasis, excuse any possible undesirable effects to our cell proliferation or toxicity, they are often be cleaned up by degradation. He's not very good at this. Close quote. He said, quote, apparently the mRNA vaccines had generated just a bit more than the cells could mop out, close quote, the research scientist said, adding there is no evidence suggesting that the antibodies resulting from the frame shift are harmful. Dr. Lee also commented, like the problem is that they're untested. Like we have no idea what's going to happen. There's no evidence suggesting that the antibodies resulting from the frame shift are harmful. Well, it's still definitely a cause for a great deal of concern because we have no idea what's going to happen here. Dr. Lee also commented on the 8% frame shifting figure, saying that if the figure were independently confirmed, it would be, quote, likely be thought of as less optimal, close quote. You think? Quote, it would need a rather marked confirmation change in a regular mRNA to be prone to such relatively high level of frame shift. Struck out. On December 22nd, senior advisor Anoop sent to Director General Summerer what appeared to be a final on frame shifting, drawing on the inputs from Dr. Klein, Dr. Lee, and Dr. Rosu-Miles. Quote, I struck out a bullet as it seems to be leaping to a pronouncement when you consider what Michael, Dr. Rosu-Miles, indicated in his Sean Lee's assessment, close quote, wrote Mr. Anoop. The struck out paragraph is the one taken from Dr. Klein's assessment mentioning the high level of impurity. Notably, the summary produced by Mr. Anoop also does not contain the concerns raised by Dr. Lee about mRNA conformity issues and the, quote, relatively high level of frame shift, close quote. The summary concludes by saying that vaccine makers are expected to monitor their products and report safety signals to Health Canada. It says that the department has, quote, sufficient processes in place to evaluate product risk prior to authorization, close quote, and to, quote, continue to identify safety issues that may arise post-authorization, close quote. The final assessment sent to Chief Medical Advisor Sharma was not included in the records obtained via access to information. The Epoch Times asked Health Canada that it be provided and also asked whether Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna were contacted to discuss the frame shifting issue. A response was not obtained by publication time. Yeah, we got to trust these guys with all of our healthcare, though. That's what we should do. Pfizer, BioNTech, and Moderna have not been returning inquiries from the Epoch Times. Science magazine said Pfizer did not directly comment on frame shifting when contacted, but instead said its vaccines have a, quote, positive benefit risk profile, close quote. Sure they do. Okay, this is the last section here. Autoimmunity. Reached by email, Dr. Jessica Rose, the author of this scientific Substack article, the chief medical officer had questions about, provided her analysis of the internal Health Canada records on frame shifting. Regarding Dr. Lee's comment that there is, quote unquote, no evidence suggesting that the antibodies derived from the frame shifting are harmful, she said this indicates there is a lack of understanding of the function of antibodies. Quote, this is not about antibodies being harmful, close quote, she said. This is about unforeseen, inappropriate induction of potent immune responses that can lead to autoimmune conditions that can be life-altering at best and life-threatening at worst, close quote. Exactly. That is it. No evidence. That's a throwback to that no evidence comment that I highlighted there before. Autoimmune diseases linked to COVID-19 vaccination have been reported in recent scientific literature. In July, scientists wrote in the Journal of Autoimmunity Reviews, there is, quote, growing evidence, close quote, suggesting the COVID-19 vaccination, quote, may cause new onset autoimmune diseases, close quote. The authors, however, mentioned the causal relationship remains to be demonstrated. In a commentary preprint, the response to the Nature article, Dr. Rose and others scientists wrote that the findings are, quote, sufficient cause for regulators to conduct full risk assessments of past or future harms that may have ensued, close quote. Dr. David Wiseman, the lead author of the paper, expressed concerns about what Health Canada is doing about the issue. Quote, what efforts is Health Canada doing to identify and characterize the frame shift proteins to determine their toxicity, close quote, he said in an email to Epoch Times. Meanwhile, Dr. Philip Oldfield, who has over 3 decades of experience specializing in the bioanalysis of protein, nucleic acid therapeutics, and regulatory affairs, told the Epoch Times in an interview that he, quote, totally agrees, close quote, with Health Canada scientist Dr. Klein's assessment that 8% frame shifting is a high level of impurity. But he counterpointed that the rest of the 92%, which is SARS-CoV-2 spike protein, quote, does most of the damage, close quote. Oh, wonderful. Dr. Oldfield said the amount of spike protein produced by mRNA in the body and the biodistribution is still unknown, a fact recognized by Health Canada. Quote, now with the frame shifting issue, it's even more imperative to know what you're doing and where it goes, close quote, he said. Health Canada says in information recently tabled in Parliament that, quote, biodistribution data identified no cause of concern as the spike protein is expressed transiently, close quote. Meanwhile, peer-reviewed scientific literature shows that the spike protein can end up anywhere in the body and stay there for prolonged periods. In a study published last year in European Review for Medical and Pharmacological Sciences, Italian scientists noted finding the viral spike protein in the blood serum of patients 2 months after vaccination. After looking at the internal Health Canada records on frame shifting, Dr. Oldfield said he noted, quote, a lack of objectivity, close quote, and a deliberate attempt to, quote, play it down, close quote. Quote, they basically tried to find as much information in order to debunk the fact that it might be serious, close quote. He says, it doesn't give me confidence that they're there to make us safe, close quote. Exactly. That is exactly why we should give these people as little power as possible, but they will always go for as much because that's what bureaucrats are like. They're just power dogs. And here's another reason why we shouldn't trust them. This is Gateway Pundit, and they have picked up our story here on Kayla Prollock. So shout out to Drew for breaking this one. This is phenomenal, actually, that he ever even got in touch with this person. He was telling me about it while we were on our trip there, and it sounds like it was just a family connection. It was off chance, like big time. So Drew found out about this, and now this seems to be going viral, and Gateway Pundit is picking it up. So here is the article. Doctors confirm vaccine connection after young Ontario woman paralyzed following Moderna shot. Then he offered her euthanasia as a remedy. And they have the video here. This is one that's on our Facebook page. I'll just go ahead and read the article. A young mother's life has been turned upside down in the wake of receiving her Moderna COVID-19 booster shot, which has left her paralyzed from the neck down, the Canadian Independent reported. Kayla Pollock, a 37-year-old from Mount Albert, Ontario, has had her vibrant life of motherhood and community involvement brought to a sudden halt due to what doctors have diagnosed as a severe vaccine-related reaction. Kayla, who suffered an abusive childhood, had overcome her past to find joy in her work as a behavioral trainer for exotic animals and later as an educational assistant. The single mother, known for her active lifestyle, was compelled to get vaccinated to ensure she could continue visiting her father in his long-term care facility. However, after receiving her booster shot on January 11, 2022, Kayla began experiencing alarming symptoms, culminating in her complete paralysis less than 2 weeks later. Despite initial skepticism from emergency department staff, an MRI revealed a significant lesion on her spinal cord. A neurologist documented an audio recording, expressed his belief that the vaccine was the likely cause of Kayla's condition. View later confirmed with a diagnosis of transverse myelitis, a rare inflammatory disorder caused by damage to the spinal cord. Yeah, and this was the same doctor, as I understand it, who wouldn't sign off on it being a vaccine injury for the purpose of her getting access to the Vaccine Injury Support Fund. So good on her for having the foresight to make sure that conversation was recorded. Got to be recording everything these days. It's crazy. Prepper Beef Company starts stockpiling ribeye in... Oh, sorry, I'm reading an ad here. The once active mother is still spent several months in hospital and rehabilitation centers, even being offered MAID, medical assistance in dying, which she refused. I understand that she was offered that like 3 times too. I'll be interviewing her hopefully in the very near future, so we'll find out soon enough. Medical assistance in dying in Canada is a legal and voluntary form of euthanasia, allowing eligible adults to request assistance from a medical practitioner to end their lives. Her condition has resulted in the loss of her job, home, and the ability to co-parent her son, reducing her reliance on provincial disability support and the assistance of care workers for her daily needs. Although Kayla has attempted to secure compensation through Canada's Vaccine Injury Support Program, her application has faced numerous delays and is still pending. Meanwhile, her story has gained the attention of Veterans for Freedom, which has set up a Give, Send, Go campaign to help her raise funds for a service dog. This service dog would not only help with daily tasks, but also provide companionship to alleviate the isolation of her condition. And there we have, our very own, there's Drew in the back, and Eddie and Tamara Leach went out there to meet up with Kayla and bring her a t-shirt. So fantastic that everybody took the time to do that. Okay, here's back to the article. The donation will also be used to secure a wheelchair accessible van that meets the specific size and weight requirements of Kayla's electric wheelchair. Quote, due to her story spreading around the globe, we believe we can fundraise enough to purchase a wheelchair van to improve her quality of life. Kayla requires a wheelchair-capable van that is specific to the size and weight of her electric wheelchair. There are several companies in Canada that are able to provide Kayla with the vehicle she needs. She will be talking to several different dealerships over the next few weeks to discuss options. As soon as quotes are available, we will post the details and update goals, close quote, according to the update on Give, Send, Go. Those interested in supporting Kayla's journey can go to the Give, Send, Go. As for Kayla, her struggle continues each day with the hope that her story will bring awareness and change. And there is the video there, which is quite phenomenal. So you guys can check that out if you want. It's also on the Veterans for Freedom Facebook page. Here's CTV News, and they say Info Watchdog investigating record destruction allegations related to the ArriveCan app. So yeah, trust these people with our health, right? ArriveCan, the one that quarantined something like 10,000 people needlessly. even though they followed all the protocols and did everything they were supposed to do, or everything they were told to do. And Lori is saying, thank you, V4F. Yeah, it's a pretty amazing story, and hats off to Drew for being all over that one. So yeah, he was telling me more about it there on the weekend, and it's just a harrowing story. So it's incredible what's going on in Canada right now. Okay, so here's CTV, and they say, Ottawa, the federal government watchdog says she will look into allegations about the destruction of records related to the controversial ArriveCan app. In a statement late Friday, Information Commissioner Carolyn Maynard said she has initiated an investigation into matters related to the questioning and obtaining of records regarding ArriveCan since March of 2020. Maynard, an ombudsman for users of the Access to Information Act, provided no other specifics. She noted the access law contains strict confidentiality provisions to protect the integrity of her investigations. The federal government launched ArriveCan in April of 2020 to track health and contact information for people entering Canada during the COVID-19 pandemic and to digitize customs and immigration declarations. Canada's Auditor General said recently there was a, quote, glaring disregard, close quote, for fundamental management and contracting practices as ArriveCan was developed and implemented. You think? That seems to be a theme all throughout. So here is explosive. This is Michael Barrett. He's tweeting out explosive testimony. And it says, ex-ArriveCan official testifies there is a coordinated attempt by Trudeau government to cover up Arrive scam. Insider contracts, deleted emails, and threats. This is how corrupt and broken Trudeau's government is after 8 years. Okay, this is fascinating. Let's check this out.
Who has deleted records related to ArriveCan?
So the reports that we've seen in the media have pointed to.
Do you know of anyone? Can you assert? And if you can assert that anyone has deleted records, I just need the name.
Yeah.
I'm very short on time. Just a name.
Mindone has deleted emails, and we did not have our accounts locked down until after we testified. And we are very concerned that our emails have been deleted because they won't give us records of who's accessed our emails.
So would you say this is a cover-up?
I believe there's the potential for it, and all we've been trying to do is seek justice and fairness and transparency.
Why do you think that there's a cover-up?
It's a great question, and we want to know as well. And we've been asking for information and disclosure.
If we have the time, I told you guys about Mindone threatening me, and nobody did anything. Kelly Belanger was nowhere to be found in the OAG, keeps on saying that there was a lack of project management. Her husband was convicted of sexually assaulting young girls, got convicted and went to jail, and she wasn't around. I had been asked, and Mr. Utano had been asked to help her out while she was gone for family problems. Erin O'Gorman didn't do anything when she found out that I was threatened. Mr. Doan had threatened somebody else and been docked pay, so she knew there was a pattern of this behavior. Like, when we talk about why there would be a reason or a separation, I never had any problems when I was at the CBSA. I got asked to go to Health Canada because of my record at the CBSA and my record previous to it. So I don't know. Neither does Mr. Utano, who had a spotless record. We're just trying to get the right information. We're trying to have transparency. And now, after everything that's happened, we want independence from what the CBSA has done.
Because you don't trust the Trudeau government to review their own scandal.
And why would we? And Mindone, I think this idea that he's been threatening people. So this is the chief technology officer in their department, and he's the guy who's deleting these emails and engaging in this cover-up. And of course, you know, the ArriveCan application is really just like the digital ID, and it's you see the digital ID, and you can see the social credit. All kind of wrapped up into one here. And, you know, I got to wonder, is this guy a CCP asset of some kind? I mean, that's kind of the question that I'm asking, because it certainly smells like it. Okay, here's PP again. And he says, Trudeau must release the documents related to what happened in Winnipeg. No more hiding, no more excuses, and the cover-up. So speaking of cover-ups, everybody remember this? This was this is the Globe and Fail. And of course, I'm not paying for a subscription with those, you know, thieves that put the gun in my face, the state guns in my face, and the hand in my pocket. And then they still have the gall to expect me to pay for a subscription. But the headline is details withheld on fired scientists to save health agency embarrassment, MPs say. Yeah. So they had a CCP asset working in the level 4 biosecurity lab in Winnipeg, and they ended up getting frog marched out by RCMP because presumably they were turncoats working for the CCP. And so I got to wonder if maybe Mindone is not in that category as well. But on the bright side, here is Better Dwelling, and they're reporting Canada just saw the largest foreign investor sell-off ever. No, it's not really the bright side. It's probably that they're trying to crash our economy. So they've been laundering money through the Canadian real estate market forever. And basically everybody works for the CCP, whether they are domestic or expats in another country. Not everybody, of course, but they leverage the diaspora, and a lot of the millionaires, like they got to play ball, the millionaires and billionaires, that is. Okay, so here is the article. So it seems to be the case that this is part of the strategy. They're driving us out of house and home with these skyrocketing real estate prices that have a lot to do with the foreign money in our real estate market, Chinese in particular. So here's the article. Canada has experienced tremendous success selling labor on opportunity. It's not having nearly as much luck convincing investors of the same. That was the take from BMO Capital Markets, warning the TSX saw a record sell-off from foreign investors. The institution warns this is just part of a larger issue of domestic and global capital seeing fewer opportunities in the country and sending their money to work elsewhere. Canada's stock markets underperform, failing to attract investors. Canada's largest stock market is noticeably lagged, especially when compared to the U.S. BMO's research shows the TSX climbed just 8.1% in 2023 compared to the S&P 500's 24.2%. So yeah, that's like 3 times the amount. So we're only growing at a rate of about 1/3 of the Americans. Some of this can be attributed to retracting the lost ground from 2022, but not all of it. Significant selling was observed, and it wasn't exactly clear why. Probably all part of the plan, guys. And they're just doing the compare here on the graphs. You can see that Canada's in the blue, and the S&P 500 is in the red. So we can see that the crash, like it kind of follows the same trend lines, but ours is well below theirs right now. So not looking good. Quote, the TSX also lagged many of its peers and even the Dow. And that underperformance has dragged into the opening weeks of 2024, close quote, explains Douglas Porter, chief economist at BMO, adding, quote, and now we have a big clue as to who is doing the selling, close quote. Canada has never seen such a large foreign investor sell off. Canada is typically seen as safe haven for investors, but some of that sheen has begun to tarnish. Foreign investors sold a net $48.7 billion worth of Canadian equities in 2023. That number doesn't just sound astronomical. It would have been unimaginable in 2019. It's the largest annual outflow on record ever for Canada. Quote, over the past 3 decades, a normal year would see net buying of about $12 billion, an inflow of about $1 billion a month, and a net outflow of about $4 billion per month seen in 2023, close quote, said Porter, emphasizing how unusual this trend is. Weak foreign investment has been weakening the loonie. The heavy selling by foreign investors explains the issue, but it's hardly surprising. This is part of a larger trend of investors aboard pulling back on capital invested in the country. Foreign direct investments being another glaring red flag. Quote, combined with a steady net outflow in FDI, foreign direct investments, this helps explain why the Canadian dollar has struggled over the past year. Indeed, the surprise is that it didn't suffer an even bigger setback, close quote, he said. Annual data isn't available for the Canadian FDI yet, but the past year wasn't pretty. Canadians sent nearly $9 billion more abroad than foreign investors sent to Canada in Q3 alone. It's generally not a great sign when domestic investors see more opportunities abroad than foreign investors see in a country. Can anyone blame foreign investors? Outside of real estate investment, it doesn't appear the country is interested in anything else. Housing has been swallowed, the country's investment, diverting capital away from industry and directing it to housing. Even the country's largest bank has warned the concentration will have a destabilizing effect on the country. And it's all part of the destabilization agenda, as far as I can tell. And yeah, here is more government control. Speaking on all of this, Liz Churchill is saying now, and the other thing is too, like this is on climate change. But I also see this as part of this commie psyop that's probably centered around the Chinese Communist Party. And they do seem to have co-opted a lot of these international bodies like the WEF, if it was ever independent. I think it was probably always a part of the elite capture influence strategy of the CCP. And the IPCC, the International Panel on Climate Change at the UN, like the UN seems to do the bidding of the authoritarians by and large. And its whole policy agenda is to weaken the West. It's like the West needs to destroy its economies in order to save the planet, while China just chugs along with well over 30% of the global emissions coming from them alone, whereas Canada sits at about 1.7 to 1.9%. And effectively, like that's a carbon sinkhole because we have so many damn trees. But here is what these authoritarian freaks are saying.
This crisis has shown us that, first of all, things can shift very rapidly when we put our minds to it and when we feel the immediate emergency to our livelihoods. And second, that clearly the system, I mean, you mentioned it earlier, that we had before is not sustainable. So I see it as a tremendous opportunity to really to have this great reset and to use this huge flows, of money, to use the increased levers that policymakers have today in a way that was not possible before, to create a change that is not incremental, but that we can look back and we can say, this is the moment where we really started to position, nature at the core of the economy.
Yeah. Okay. So climate lockdowns on the way, everybody. And we already dabbled in this a little bit, as everybody will recall. There here in Nova Scotia, there were the climate lockdowns during the so-called wildfires, which have since been determined. Well, they didn't even charge the guy with arson. It was more like negligence. But, I was saying it even while the fires were raging. I was like, it's clearly an arson attack. Here is conservative nonconformists, and they say Audrey Elaine Dunham, 54, faces 32 counts of arson after being arrested by RCMP Forestry Crimes Unit on May 27th, 2021. Mounties allege he is responsible for dozens of blazes in the Bonneville and Lac La Biche areas over April and May. So dozens of arson change. We got arsonists all over the country. And what were they saying the whole time? We had fires everywhere from, Nova Scotia to Maui and in Europe as well. And Greece arrested tons of arsonists over there. So it's a lot of these eco-terrorists and NDP supporters, but I repeat myself. And here's the New York Post. They say JP Morgan, BlackRock drop out of massive UN climate alliance, and a stunning move. That is a stunning move. I couldn't believe it when I saw this, but this is positive. So, BlackRock are the guys responsible for all these ESG scores. And the higher your ESG score, the closer you are to becoming Sri Lanka, because that was essentially what destroyed them, along with the debt trap diplomacy of the Chinese Communist Party, especially when it came to building an international port that they ended up on the hook for. And now the Chinese Communist Party has that port for themselves on a 99-year lease, and it's just off the coast of India, which they seem to be surrounding. So they're going for the whole board, the whole globe, all part of their agenda of global dominance. JP Morgan Chase and institutional investors BlackRock and State Street Global Affairs announced Thursday that they are quitting, or in the case of BlackRock, substantially scaling back involvement in a massive United Nations climate alliance formed to combat global warming through corporate sustainability agreements. In a statement, the New York-based Jamie Dimon's JP Morgan explained that it would exit the so-called Climate Action 100 Plus investor group because of the expansion of its in-house sustainability team and the establishment of its climate risk framework in recent years. Larry Fink's BlackRock and State Street, which both manage trillions of dollars in assets, said the alliance climate initiatives had gone too far, expressing concern about potential legal issues as well. Wow, Larry Fink, who says he prefers the Chinese model of governance, is saying this is too far, guys. You guys are going too far. The stunning announcements come after the largest financial institutions in the U.S. and worldwide face an onslaught of pressure from consumer advocates and Republican states over their environmental, social, and governance ESG priorities. Quote, the firm has built a team of 40 dedicated sustainable investing professionals, including investment stewardship specialists, who also leverage one of the largest buy-side research teams in the industry, close quote. The bank said in a statement shared with Fox Business, quote, given these strengths and the evolution of its own stewardship capabilities, JP MAM has determined that it will no longer participate in Climate Action 100 Plus engagements, close quote. Good news, everybody. That's good news. BlackRock, meanwhile, withdrew its U.S. business from Climate Action 100 Plus, shifting involvement in the alliance to BlackRock's smaller international entity, where the majority of clients are pursuing decarbonization goals, the Financial Times first reported Thursday. A spokesperson for BlackRock confirmed to Fox Business that the move had been made in recent weeks. And State Street said its exit from the alliance was made because Climate Action 100's, quote, phase 2, close quote, commitments conflicted with the firm's internal investing policies. Quote, SSGA has concluded the enhanced Climate Action 100 Plus phase 2 requirements for signatories are not consistent with our independent approach to proxy voting and portfolio company engagement, close quote, State Street said in a statement, according to the Financial Times. Sounds like they're worried about their money and control, too much control from these supranational organizations. Climate Action 100 Plus was formally established in December 2017, and the UN at the UN as a way of aligning the world's largest private sector financiers of greenhouse gas producers. Since the association was created, it has grown to include more than 700 financial institutions that are collectively responsible for a staggering $68 trillion in assets under management. The group, which is overseen by 9 governmental steering committee comprised of ESG activists, calls for members to engage companies on, quote, improving climate change governance, close quote, curbing carbon emissions, and strengthening climate-related financial disclosure policies. Its actions have largely taken aim at investments benefiting the oil and gas industry while boosting green energy investment strategies. The Climate Action 100 Plus, quote unquote, phase 2 strategy, which was set to be implemented later this year, calls for member investors to actively engage with companies to reduce their carbon footprint. Okay. All right. That's good for that article there, guys. But that, I think, is good news. Definitely a step in the right direction. We're seeing these people back off of some of this lunacy. Speaking of lunacy, here is General Woke Wayner Iyer, and he's tweeting some nonsense about Ukraine in these idiot Russian letters here. And I'm just going to hit translate post. Now, he has also tweeted this out in French and English. Some people were kind of saying like, this is highly inappropriate. And, I do kind of feel like this is inappropriate. I mean, they have Google Translate over there in Europe and Ukraine as well. So if they want to know what General Iyer is saying, then they can go ahead and hit the translate button. But the translation is, 2 years ago, Russia began its current brutal, unprovoked, and illegal wave of invasion of Ukraine. It is a time to reflect on the extraordinary resilience, courage, and self-sacrifice demonstrated by Ukrainians and the armed forces. Yeah. Typical woke Wayner stuff. Meanwhile, here we have the CAF with Ukraine. I just came across this account, and they're putting out a little propaganda video of how great it is to have Canadian soldiers over there dying for this corrupt war, or lining themselves up for that. They're not dying yet. But at what point do you think, Vladimir Putin's just going to say, okay, guys, like clearly we're at war here. And they have, 20 nuclear icebreakers that's pointed right at us. We happen to share a border with Russia as well. Don't forget, through the Arctic, which is opening up. And also there have been all these, Chinese spy buoys and stuff being found all over the place. And they'll say, oh, no, that's just for science. Yeah, okay, guys. But here is CAF with Ukraine. They say, a member of the Canadian Armed Forces deployed on Op Unifier reflects on the 2-year mark of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, as well as their mission to train members of the armed forces of Ukraine. And this has been going on longer than 2 years, of course. I think most people realize it really kind of started around 2014. It was just the current invasion, the current phase, I guess, started 2 years ago. But here
Dobry den. I am one of the hundreds of Canadian Armed Forces members currently deployed on Operation Unifier in Europe. Today marks 2 years that Ukrainians have been courageously defending themselves from Russia's full-scale invasion. We are here to offer our skills and experience to our Ukrainian partners and learn from their own experiences. I want to thank them for the chance to contribute to the ongoing fight.
Okay, and then we got the Ukrainian flag complete with, that looks like the wolf hook. I don't know. But and the Canadian flag here. Okay, so militaries standing together like there's some kind of alliance here. They're not NATO yet. That would be, I think, disastrous. And yeah, it's just a money laundering operation to fill China's war chest and alienate Russia at the same time, drive them right into the arms of that Chinese dragon. Okay, and here is this is right from the Prime Minister's office, Justin Trudeau, and it says Canada announces additional support for Ukraine. Assistance captured in the agreement on security cooperation between Canada and Ukraine, financial aid and military support. Funding $3.02 billion for 2024. Not that we could use any of that help here in Canada. Well done. It says Canada will provide critical financial and military support to Ukraine for 2024, including new financial support for Ukraine to meet its balance of payments and budgetary needs to stabilize its economy. This also includes the first year of a new multi-year military assistance commitment that will enable enhanced contributions to the Ukraine Defense Contract Group, Armored Coalition, and Air Force Coalition, as well as military assistance previously committed to Ukraine that will be delivered in 2024. Yeah, we could probably use that for our military, given how determined we are to piss off Russia, and they're right on our border as well. But we're not going to see that. This is all about the West spending all its blood and treasure in Ukraine, while enriching those Chinese oligarchs that Hunter Biden was working for while he was over there. And, we won't be in a position to defend Taiwan when the Chinese Communist Party makes a move on it, probably later this year, I'm thinking, prior to the American election. Okay, and here we have Robert F. Kennedy, and he's providing some commentary on this situation. And this is Gilda tweeting this out. And they're saying, for those of you who turned a blind eye to Putin's interview, here is Robert Kennedy Jr., who is a patriotic American, a Democrat. Isn't he saying exactly the same story as Putin? Sometimes it's good to put personal likes and dislikes aside. And here, MSM will fall if we just push. Okay, so here's Robert F. Kennedy, and I think he's got some pretty valuable commentary on this. So here
I want to settle the war. Let's negotiate. And Zelensky has said we're not going to negotiate. But 92, the wall came down in the Soviet Union. Gorbachev said, I'm going to allow you to reunify Germany, but I want your commitment. After that, you will not move NATO 1 inch to the east. And we solemnly swore we wouldn't do it. Well, then in 97, we're going to move NATO 1,000 miles to the east and take 15 countries into it and surround the Soviet Union. We then overthrow the government. In 2014, their elected government, and put in a Western sympathetic government. Russia then has to go into Crimea because they have a port at Vladivostok. It's their only warm water port. And they know the new government that we just installed is going to invite the U.S. Navy into their port. So then the Russians go in. They only send 40,000 people. It's a nation of 44 million people. They clearly do not intend to conquer Ukraine, but they want us back at the negotiating table. The Russians just want a guarantee that Ukraine won't join NATO. Zelensky signs the treaty. Putin's people sign the treaty. And Putin starts withdrawing the Russian troops in good faith. And what happens? Joe Biden sends Boris Johnson, the British Prime Minister, over to Ukraine in April and forces him to tear up the treaty. And since then, 450,000 kids have died who none of them should. Putin never.
Yep, that's about the state of affairs over there. So just a failure in diplomacy across the board. It doesn't seem that our side is interested in going to the negotiating table at all, but Putin has been calling for us to come to the table to hear his concerns, and we're saying, no, Putin is evil, so Russia. There we go. And here's Visegrad 24. Breaking. Hungary ratifies Sweden's NATO membership. Sweden becomes NATO's 32nd member state. Congratulations to Sweden, and congratulations to NATO for getting these. Check this guy out. He's got that axe, and he certainly looks like some kind of a super soldier over there in Sweden. And this guy's just kind of looking at him like, yeah, okay, buddy. Right on. Here is Justin Trudeau. He says, all allies have now approved Sweden's membership in NATO. Canada strongly supports this good news. We're confident Sweden's membership will strengthen our collective defense and keep people around the world safe. Yay. And he's retweeting Jens Stoltenberg. He's the chair of NATO there. And he's talking about the Hungarian parliament's ratification. I think it was Hungary and Turkey who were holdouts there for quite a while. And this is Peter Sweden. He says, this is the army. So if you're just listening, this looks like a pride parade. Yeah, that looks about right to me. Sweden was once referred to by Julian Assange as the Saudi Arabia of feminism. So they are severely cocked over there. And, well, now they're realizing they need to get under this umbrella of protectionism. But, you know, this was something that that Vladimir Putin discussed during the Tucker Carlson interview. I think he was like, yeah, they don't have to worry about us. If they don't attack us, we won't attack them. So and actually, here he is. This is Vladimir Putin here, and concerned. Sorry, sweet. He says Putin on Sweden's NATO membership, and he's got some quotes there. I'll just let Putin say it himself. I'll give you the translation here, guys. Turn off the volume. Here we go. He says, in regard to Finland and Sweden, we don't have problems with Finland. Oh, what's going on with the sound here? Finland and with Finland and Sweden that unfortunately we have with Ukraine. We have no territorial disputes with them. There is nothing that might be of concern in terms of Finland and Sweden becoming NATO members. If they want to, please go ahead. But they should clearly understand that they didn't face any threats before this. Now, if NATO troops and infrastructure are deployed, we will be compelled to respond in kind and create the same threats for the territories from which the threats toward us are created. It's obvious. What don't they understand? Or why don't they understand that? What don't they understand that? Everything is going to be fine with us, but now there will be tensions. There certainly will. This is obvious and inevitable. I repeat, if there is a threat to us. So, yeah, he didn't have anything to worry about before, but if NATO continues to be aggressive toward Russia and Finland and Sweden happen to be NATO members, well, then that could result in a response in kind from Russia. And here is our fearless leader here, the cuttlefish crime minister. This is Daisy Media. He says, gaslighting, pro-level. Quote, truly strong leaders don't use political and military to oppress people's voices. So this is with respect to Trudeau is making some comments here with respect to the purported assassination of Uvalde there, who I think may have actually died of a blood clot. Was he vaxxed? But I don't have that lined up right now. But anyway, here's Trudeau.
Putin pretends to be powerful, but truly strong leaders don't assassinate their opponents. Truly strong leaders don't use police and military to oppress people's voices.
So what does this make?
Sorry, guys. Trudeau warning.
You.
Truly strong leaders don't use police and military to oppress people's voices. Truly strong leaders don't use police and military to oppress people's voices. Truly strong leaders don't use police and military to oppress people's voices. Truly strong leaders don't use police and military to oppress people's voices. Truly strong leaders don't use police and military to oppress people's voices. Truly strong leaders don't use police and military to oppress people's voices. Truly strong leaders don't use police and military to oppress people's voices. Truly strong leaders don't use police and military to oppress people's voices. Truly strong leaders don't use police and military to oppress people's voices. Truly strong leaders don't use police and military to oppress people's voices. Truly strong leaders don't use police and military to oppress people's voices.
And yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is friend of the program, Chris Stacey, who was sharing that out. Oh my God, just the projection. I think it's the total, utter lack of self-awareness. It's galling, but we're used to it now. I guess we see it all the time because that is standard when it comes to our cuttlefish crime minister. Okay, here's True North, and they're saying op-ed. The world needs to stop telling Israel what to do. This is kind of something that our current government has been into as well, is calling for the ceasefire and whatnot. They are moving into the south right now, but anyway, so things are kind of the rhetoric is really churning up here, but ultimately, I think we're looking at I maintain that we're looking at a counter-terrorist operation. They're in there to destroy Hamas while minimizing civilian casualties. And the data itself seems to indicate that they're quite successful in that, with only 1/6 of the civilian casualties of the average for the 21st century. But here's a quick update. This is an op-ed and from True North. It says, a day hasn't passed since the horrors of October 7th Hamas massacres of some 1,200 innocent Israelis, aided and abetted by hundreds of ordinary Gazans, without some politician or other calling for an immediate ceasefire followed by a two-state solution to this latest attempt to destroy the Jewish state of Israel. Israel pushed back stronger than ever in this foolishly naive and patently suicidal suggestion Sunday, when Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu announced that his government is proposing a declaration that, quote, outright rejects, close quote, any attempts by foreign powers to create a Palestinian state. Quote, in light of the talk recently heard in the international community about an attempt to unilaterally impose a Palestinian state on Israel, I am bringing today a declarative decision on this issue for the approval of the government. I am sure it will be widely accepted, close quote, Netanyahu told the cabinet in Hebrew. Cabinet unanimously approved the declaration. Quote, Israel outright rejects international dictates regarding the permanent settlement with the Palestinians, close quote, it said. Quote, such an arrangement would be reached only through direct negotiations between the parties without preconditions. Israel will continue to oppose the unilateral recognition of a Palestinian state. Such a recognition, followed by the massacre of October 7th, would reward the terrorism, a reward like no other, and will prevent any further peace settlement, close quote. The statement echoes what Netanyahu told U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken last week, namely that direct or even indirect recognition of a Palestinian state would, quote, be a prize for those who planned and orchestrated the October 7th massacre, close quote. And don't forget that UNRWA was involved in that as well. So UN employees actually participating in the massacre. That's what they're up against there. It's a functionally a terror state. They enjoy anywhere between like 60 and 80% support from the population, and the population did participate in the massacre as well. And so it's a pretty intractable situation. But I think that Elon Musk had the right formula there, which is essentially the same formula that I've been talking about. It's to destroy Hamas, reform education, promote prosperity. It's the same model that worked in Japan, Germany, Italy, South Korea, and we seem to have gotten away from that, unfortunately. Back to the article. Biden and other U.S. officials and many world leaders have repeatedly said that Israel's war against Hamas should end with a two-state solution, implying by this call that they would quickly recognize a Palestinian state. Such a view is rife with historical amnesia, if not a cynical political posturing or even outright anti-Semitism. Israel has repeatedly attempted to make peace and accept a two-state solution with Palestinian and Arab leaders over the past 75 years, but all offers have been rejected, including the original 1947 UN partition plan that led to Israel's establishment, and Israeli offers in 2000 and 2008 that would have recognized a Palestinian state. Quote, I do not think a two-state solution is possible, and even if possible, it is not advisable. For more than 50 years, hundreds of self-proclaimed peacemakers led by the United States have attempted to coerce Israel and the Palestinians into a two-state solution, close quote. Former U.S. Ambassador to Israel, David Friedman, said last month. Friedman, who served as the U.S. Ambassador under former President Donald Trump, said the efforts fail because Palestinians won't accept a Jewish state. There's a high likelihood a Palestinian state would become a terror state, and the West Bank is a biblical Israel, meaning Jewish and Christian holy sites would likely be destroyed absent any Israeli control. Former Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper strongly condemned efforts to impose a quick two-state solution in a National Post editorial titled, Israel's War is Just, Hamas Must Surrender or Be Eliminated. He used unequivocal words that would never be echoed by Justin Trudeau, who has unequivocally muttered out of both sides of his mouth on this war. Quote, Israel's war objective, the elimination of Gaza's Hamas regime, is essential, close quote, Harper said. Quote, leaving the job unfinished with Hamas's existence tolerated and its actions contained has been tried and it has failed. The Israeli people cannot be reasonably asked to return to the pre-war status quo. That is the position of our own nations. Our own nations took toward the attacks launched by Nazi Germany against it. Against us. Israel has an absolute right to absolute security now as we did then, close quote. And they do have, the last time I checked on the numbers here, about 3/4 of Hamas has been destroyed in terms of number of battalions anyway. So I think it's 18 out of 24 battalions have already been destroyed. They're really just going into this last push here. So it would be absolutely ridiculous to expect them not to. All right, quote, suggestions that a victorious Israeli army should simply walk out of Gaza and assume some harmonious, quote unquote, two-state solution will emerge out of thin air is insincere and hypocritical, close quote, Harper added. Quote, I dare say it is also beyond foolish. This is precisely what Israel was persuaded to do in 2005, and it is why we ended up here. Ended up where we are today, close quote. Exactly. I've been saying the exact same thing. Harper took note of the anti-Israel mantras such as, quote, from the river to the sea, close quote, and, quote, settler occupation, close quote, that fundamentally reject the idea of a Jewish state. And the settler occupation is part of the propaganda that they hurl at us as well. That's what they say about any Western nation that's not in their indigenous homeland. But we even have, you know, apparently Scotland is too white because even though whites are indigenous to Scotland. But the settler occupation is something that's been around since the 50s, starting with Russian propaganda. And I think the Chinese really picked that up and amped it up in recent years. And we see that a lot with the, you know, colonialism, anti-colonialism in Canada, and especially the residential schools narrative, especially around Kamloops, which we all know. There have been no remains actually found at the Kamloops site. That was all a preliminary radar report that they just ran with and kept the flags at half staff for 6 months in a truly Maoist cultural revolution. Back to the article. Quote, we must stop pretending a two-state solution can be pursued in the face of the continued propagation of such a view, close quote, he said. Such words need to be heeded when it comes to the Palestinians. The world needs to stop telling Israel what to do and how to do it. Okay, so yeah, I think that, yeah, it's their lives. Like, they are the ones who end up dying if they screw this up. So I think that we should probably, and that is the thing, like, we're always talking about how the West needs to stop meddling. Actually, I think Israel is a Western power, but we need to stop meddling in the affairs of other countries. But when it comes to this one, it seems that doesn't apply. And I think it's because it is a Western power in the Middle East. And therefore it's a lot of strategic value. And it's the same anti-Western psyop that we see being inflicted on us that's constantly being hurled at the Israelis. Okay. And here is an example of exactly what they're up against here. I've been talking about this quite a bit. It's the phenomenon of global jihad. So here is Zephyr Heretic, and he says, sensitive video. A Muslim toddler slits the throat of a teddy bear, shouts Allahu Akbar, while his father encourages. When would such people evolve enough to be part of the civilized world? Well, I don't think it would take that long. I would say probably 4 generations. That's kind of what I'm putting forth as the model, in terms of the, destroy the evildoers, reform education, promote prosperity, and 4 generations later, we got ourselves a modern liberal democracy like Japan, for example, or South Korea. So that's my best guess anyway. But here is this toddler, and an example, I think, of what is a little bit, more than a little bit, but all too common in a lot of places. So here we go.
طويلا ستبقى بحربي ستشقى بماذا ستلقى فتكبر إذا الخيل جالت وشالت وصالت بهذا استحالت لظى المسرعة تكبير تكبير شراع الورى إذا الخيل فتكبر.
So there you go. And we've seen this kind of stuff where they're simulating, attacks on IDF soldiers and whatnot inside UNRWA schools in Gaza itself. I've shown footage of children. They showed dead Israeli children being dragged across the ground while you could hear Gazan children shouting Allahu Akbar in the background. So there's a real problem with indoctrination. This is probably the problem across the world, really, is indoctrination, it's worldview, and we need to start challenging. We need to step into that ideological battle space and start challenging this stuff. But because of political correctness and wokeness, we seem not to. Okay, and here is, it's the same account. It says Zephyr Heretic, and he says, Muslim bro feels, quote, tortured and hurt, close quote, because non-Muslims exist. So here is, I think this is in New York, but here we go.
We're done hiding. We're done. We're done being tortured and hurt and judged. This is the correct religion. This is the religion that all of humanity needs to be a part of, Islam. And we will not stop until it enters every home. So I want you to repeat after me. I want to hear it in every single district. It should tremble. Brooklyn should hear it. The Bronx should hear it.
Yeah, it is New
York. Queens should hear it. Say it as if the Ummah depends on this, my brothers and sisters. La ilaha illallah. There is no God worthy of worship except Allah, the God of Jesus, the God of Moses, the God of Abraham, and the God of the last and final prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. We're done hiding.
We're done hiding. Yeah, I mean, I talk about these ideas that exist that are mainstream, really, in Islam, like taqiyya and kitman. Kitman is the hiding of one's true beliefs, and taqiyya is actively lying about them, which are endorsed in mainstream Islam. And hijra is another one. Hijra is like a conquest through migration. So, they will migrate until they get to be about 2% or above in the population, and then they get to be political Islam, I think, is what we're looking at here. They get to be quite problematic in a lot of ways. So and Colleen is pointing out the Muslim Brotherhood stated in 1927 they would take over the world. That sounds about right. I can't confirm the date or anything like that, but yeah, definitely an issue. And Tony is saying we played cowboys and Indians as kids. Yeah, and what's interesting to me that I like to point out about cowboys and Indians is there were no bad guys. It was like it was just a way of picking teams. There were no bad guys in cowboys and Indians. It was that's something worth reflecting on, I think. And Patricia's saying something about some videos that she sent me on both sides. I did send you videos, Jeff. Yeah, I mean, I think maybe you're talking about the Gaza conflict there right now, but I don't have those videos queued up, but I'm always open to looking at this stuff too. But ultimately, I'm coming to the judgment that that the Hamas were the aggressors in this. There wouldn't be any war if it were not for October 7th. And, there was a ceasefire on October 6th, a massacre on October 7th, and on October 8th, there were, Muslims pouring into the streets all over the world, chanting intifada and calling for a ceasefire. And now everybody's calling for a ceasefire. And it's like, well, no, you can't let them get away with it. You can't let them win. You can't give them what they want. That's only going to encourage more terrorism and more massacres. Okay, here is Spayer868, and he is a friend of the program, a fellow veteran, and he has a nice video clip here. He says, we will always tell the truth, whatever the cost. This film will shatter the narrative. It is the next step in our journey. Can I count on you? Will you join me? Visit flynnmovie.com and sign up to be the first watch. So this is General Michael Flynn. He's got some really good commentary that I think is very much in line with a lot of what I've been saying about the state of a world, about the true state of the world here. It's about a 1-minute clip. Here we go.
War is this massive racket. I mean, we are at war constantly. Peace is the aberration, and war is the norm. So if I was to give a grade, like you get in grade school, right? I give us an A+ for participating in these never-ending wars. I give us an F for winning. When we fast forward to today, really from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 9/11, and the wars that we're constantly at, can you tell me when we weren't at war? For those that are running our country, they want this perpetuation of war. And you have to ask yourself, what is the purpose? All we're doing is we are spending. There are those that are profiting, and there are those that are sacrificing. War is the easiest racket.
So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Michael Flynn was Trump's security advisor for about a minute before the deep state had him sidelined and persecuted, and even went after his son in court. Tried to prosecute him under the Logan Act for actually contacting his Russian counterpart while the Trump administration was in transition and prior to, his inauguration, his official inauguration. And they were saying that was like collusion with Russians and stuff like that. But he was already in the position. He was contacting the Russian ambassador. So it was for the purposes of diplomacy, not subversion. But Michael Flynn, that is, I think, I couldn't have said it better, right? Like, war is the default. The world is at war. It's always at war. And it becomes a question of whether we just let it burn or we actually do something about it. Now, what we've been doing wrong, though, is we've been going with all these half measures. And as Flynn points out here, it's very profitable to prolong these wars, but there's no need of it. And I think that Donald Trump demonstrated that very well. I mean, he even brought North Korea to heel with Twitter. We could be a hell of a lot better at this. It seems that there is a profit incentive to prolong these things and keep them going, when what we should be doing is applying overwhelming force. It's not the case that you're, and that was another thing that I saw with the Gazan conflict as well, was where a lot of people were coming out and talking about proportionality. Well, it's not supposed to be proportional. It's supposed to be overwhelming. You're supposed to close with and destroy the enemy. And that's just what we haven't been doing. We've been going with all these half measures all the time, even like in the Gulf War, where, they had Iraq driven out of Kuwait, in pretty short order, but they didn't drive all the way to Baghdad and depose Saddam Hussein. I think he basically just lost the right to govern with the repeat aggression against his neighbors, fooling around with the non-proliferation treaties, attempting a genocide in the Kurds in the north, and general, like, brutal oppression of his own people. He should have been deposed. They should have gone all the way and turned Iraq into Japan. But instead, they didn't go into Iraq and imposed a no-fly zone, kind of prolonged the whole thing, and then had to go clean up that mess in 2003, and ended up, instead of, again, going with the overwhelming force, it was all about the rebuilding contracts, and it was just absolutely replete with nepotism and profiteering and this kind of thing. So It needs to change. It needs to be. You're not going to avoid war. If the United States stopped going to war, it's not like the world would stop. I mean, Slobodan Milosevic was a thing. Don't forget. So it really is a question of whether we do something about it. And when we make that decision, like we should make the decision to go all the way. And not just halfway. But here is my buddy Glenn, and he's saying Alex Jones just played a Reese Report video where Greg Reese gave a shout out to V4F and their Give Send Go to help a vaccine injured Canadian woman. Hopefully, this large exposure will help raise funds for this severely injured woman. That would be fantastic, and it's great to see that getting international attention as it deserves. Okay, and here is our astute statesman, Trudeau warning, but this is pretty entertaining. Here he is.
And because we know that Russia must win this war. That Ukraine must win this war against Russia. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
And because we...
Freudian slip? I don't know. What a freaking maroon. Okay, and I thought I'd end things on a bit of a positive note. I did go to CPAC over the weekend and late last week, so that's why I haven't been streaming for the last few episodes. But here is a picture of me and Christine Anderson. I got to hang out with Christine Anderson, and I like just a whole mess of really awesome people from all over the place. So it was pretty spectacular. And I got my Maple MAGA hat on. That was a good call on Drew's part there to get the Maple MAGA hats because everybody loved them. And it was a great conversation piece. So here's me and Christine. And my comment on this one was, please spare us your presence. She's spare her presence, and she's awesome. Okay. And I had a chance to go down to, this is about a 4-minute clip. I'll show a little bit of it. This is a tweet of mine. It says, I said, I went down to the penitentiary where the January 6ers are being held. These people have been demonstrating there every night. One of the mothers had her phone call with her detained son on the loudspeaker. God bless the USA. Yeah, this was a pretty moving experience, actually. I'll just show a little bit of it here so you guys can have a flavor for it. But here I am at the penitentiary where the January 6ers are being held. So I'm here in DC, but I've taken some sites while I'm here. I came down to check out a January 6th detainee protest. Got some counter demonstrator or two across the street being nasty, but it's not hard to tell who the good people are. At least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the U.S. So really phenomenal people down there, guys. I was so glad that I took the time to go down and check this out. Apparently I came in just on the tail end of it. I heard 9 o'clock when people told me about it, but I guess that's just when they sing God Bless the USA. And you can see they got the huge American flag they're waving around there. And there's some Antifa types across the street just being nasty, but these people were really awesome. And they've been doing this the whole time. This is from January 6, 2020. This has been going on. And these people go down there every night and do this. So it was pretty incredible. And here, speaking of incredible, here is we went out to a piano bar on the second night, and there was a really strong Canadian showing, by the way, at CPAC. Holy smokes, I ran into a lot of Canadians. And I think basically the bulk of it all ended up at this piano bar just down the street from the hotel. And here is Christine Anderson and Theo Fleury on stage doing a duet.
Life is older than the trees, younger than the mountains, going like the breeze. Country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mama, take me home. Country roads, all my memories gather round her. My new lady, strangers to water, dark and dusty, painted on the sky. Miss the taste of moonshine, teardrops fly. Country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mama, take me home. Country roads, I hear your voice in the morning hours. She calls me. Radio reminds me of my home party. Driving down the road I should have been home yesterday. Country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, Mama, take me home. Just one more time.
Okay, right on. And yeah, somebody was just saying, Serena was just saying, wonderful to see Christine Anderson singing, having a good time. Love her. Yeah, she was just a gem. I had a lot of fun hanging out with her, even though she was kind of jacking me up for not wearing a tie. She seemed to think that I should have had a tie on when I was talking to her at this particular event. But anyway, screw ties. I wore one when I was in uniform for 20 years, and I'm just like, no, I'm good. Okay, and here is one more clip here, just from the piano bar. Like I said, we had a strong Canadian contingent there, and the pianist actually closed the night out with "Oh Canada." These guys were great. Check them out. Pretty spectacular stuff, right? Yeah, this piano bar was a really good call, whoever made it. But they were playing everything. There was like Teenage Dirtbag when we walked in there, and just some really talented people on stage here. So, and a great bunch. Oh, speaking of a great bunch, check us out. Here we are at just waiting for Donald Trump to come in, the Maple MAGA crew. So there's Drew behind me. I should try not to stand so close to him because he's like 6'5", so I look like a midget. But there's myself and Drew. Blair Ector, he's Eddie Cornell over on the right there. He's Eddie's lawyer, so he's the guy who actually put together that charter application for judicial review that resulted in the Mosley decision declaring the invocation of the Emergencies Act, ultra vires. So I had a great time hanging out with the guys and meeting Blair. He's an awesome guy, and also another Stoic. He's very much into philosophy. He has an undergrad in philosophy, and as I'm always saying, I am but an amateur student of philosophy, but this guy really knows his stuff. So had a great time hanging out with him and chatting, and he's going to be on the program here on Friday. So you're going to want to stay tuned for that. We're going to do a Philosophy Friday, and he's going to tell us a little bit about the Mosley decision and, what that was like, making that case, and I guess maybe a little bit about the lawsuit too, but I'm not really sure where his guardrails are. So we'll wait and see what he's got to say on Friday. So stay tuned for that, guys. I'm really looking forward to it. So. And that brings us to the Veterans for Freedom website. To close everything out, you can subscribe to our newsletter by clicking subscribe here. Join Veterans for Freedom if you're a veteran by clicking join here, and support Veterans for Freedom by clicking support here. You'll have two options. One is to donate to us to help with our operational costs, like my StreamYard account and the website. And the other one is the support fund by clicking support. And we can see the last month's results here. Chris Lysak, not enough votes for Chris. Kayla Pollock ended up getting the most votes with 31. So Kayla is, the same woman who suffered vaccine injury that resulted in her becoming a quadriplegic. And so it looks like our funds are going to be going to her. And we're going to produce a full video coverage of her story. And also we're trying to help to get her a service dog too. So there's another Give, Send, Go that's set up to do that. Lisa Robinson, not enough for her, but you know what, Kayla Pollock, I think that's definitely a good choice. Good job, everyone. Good job. And Veterans Association Food Bank, we also had the opportunity for everybody to send 10% of their donations to them. So all kinds of great stuff. We do really great work with this, something we're really proud of around here. And you can sign up for a monthly subscription by clicking one of the buttons here with your credit card. If you don't want to use your credit card, please send your e-transfers to fund@veteransforfreedom.ca, preferably with your auto deposit enabled. But if you're not able to do that, then please use the password fund4freedom. That's all caps fund, 4 all caps freedom, and we'll make sure that gets off to a worthy cause. Okay, and that brings us all the way back around to our quote from Potter Stewart, who was the justice who had a lot to do with protecting free speech, with the exception of hardcore pornography down in the United States. And he says, censorship reflects a society's lack of confidence in itself. It is a hallmark of an authoritarian regime. And of course, we're seeing that out in full force in spades here in Canada with more legislation than I have ever seen, and an awful lot of it directed at online speech and curbing our freedom of expression. Okay, that's it from me today, guys. Glad to be back here today. I'll throw to a few comments before I sign off. RJ Sawyer over on Rebel is saying, wow, Theo looking old and fat. Makes me sad. No, Theo I thought was pretty spry when I met him there. And, to be straight with you guys, I wouldn't know who Theo Fleury was if it were not for his involvement in the freedom movement. I'm not, I don't follow sports. I used to follow MMA, but even that's just gotten a little bit too pro wrestling for my taste. So I don't follow sports at all. But Theo was really great to talk to him. And I watched his speech at the International Crisis Summit, and he agreed to do an interview with me at some point in the near future here. So more on the way there, guys. He's got one hell of a story to tell, particularly as it pertains to the abuse he suffered as a child in minor hockey. So, and he knows a thing or two about trauma. So I'm looking forward to bringing that out to everybody, especially the veterans who are tuning in. And Kimster is saying, met Eddie and Tamara in concert. Great experience. Yeah, I bet. You know what? I haven't met Tamara before, so I would love to meet her at some point in the future. And Colleen says, I need a nap now. Okay, well, you go have yourself a nap. Lori says, thank you, Jeff, for the amazing show today. All right, my pleasure. Thanks for tuning in. Patricia says, best show this week. Have a beautiful day. Thanks, Jeff. Hearts Canada, Hearts for Freedom. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, Patricia. I appreciate it. And I'm glad you guys enjoy the show. And Cindy is saying, thanks, Jeff. Much love. glad you're back. And she's given us the victory for winning and victory. Everybody thinks it's peace sign. I'm always pointing out, like, Richard Nixon used to do this, and he hated the hippies. So it's not peace, it's victory. It comes from the GI generation from World War II. Laurie says, have a good day, everyone. Remember, do not comply. Good advice. Cora says, thanks. Thanks again, Jeff. So nice to be back with the troops. Have a great day, everyone. Remember to mock them while we still can. Yes, that is how we're going to win this war. It's with memes and tyrants. They can't take mockery. And the tyrannical mind can't understand the ironic mind and sees it always as a threat. Evelyn says, great show and welcome back. Take care all. I wasn't even gone that long, guys, but I'm glad that you guys are grateful to have me back. And Serena says, glad you're back. Made my day. Love this chat. Yeah, we do have a great chat. It is more like a movement than a podcast following. And Laurie is saying, good to be back too. Nice to join everyone again. Thanks as always, Jeff. Peace out, Laurie. Thanks very much, Laurie. And take care, guys. All right, till next time, stay frosty and stay safe out there.
Won't you help to sing these songs of freedom? It's all I ever have. Redemption songs.